Welcome. Tonight we journey into a place of golden light, a silent, honey-colored world suspended in time. It is a realm born from the resin of ancient trees, a substance that has captured life itself and turned it into memory. Every drop holds a story, every glint of gold a whisper from a vanished age. This is the world of amber. Amber is more than a gem. It is the essence of a lost forest, transformed by time into something luminous and eternal. Within its depths, moments that once belonged to the living still linger. The flutter of wings, the stillness of a final breath, the trace of movement caught between seconds. It is sunlight made solid, a fragment of the Earth's deep past made visible again. Through this golden window, we can see details that stone could never preserve. The iridescent shimmer of a feather, the fine, translucent hairs on a spider's leg, the delicate geometry of a fly's compound eyes, even the soft skin of a newborn creature held in perfect stillness for 100 million years. Each one is a life suspended at the edge of eternity. Tonight, we will look through this window and meet its silent inhabitants. Some are familiar. Others are unlike anything that has ever walked, crawled, or flown in our world. Spiders with tails, ants armed with blades, feathered ghosts that blur the line between reptile and bird. Each is a fragment of a forgotten experiment in life, strange, intricate, and impossibly alive. Before we descend into this ancient light, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Sharing this slow journey into deep time with others is, as always, a quiet comfort. This is a journey through deep time, a slow descent into the forests of the Cretaceous, where air was thick and the light itself seemed older. As we travel, the noise of our own world will fall away. The only sound that remains will be the hum of the ancient canopy, a soft wind moving through a forest no human has ever seen. Now, dim the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Imagine it as the breath of an ancient forest, the wind moving through the canopy of a Cretaceous world, a sound no human ear has ever heard. Let the familiar, hard-edged and fast-paced world fade away, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The hum we imagine, that faint ancient wind, moves through a canopy that is utterly alien to us. This is not a forest of familiar oaks or maples with their broad, soft leaves catching the light. This is an older world, a world of giants. The trees that stand here are titans of a different order, conifers like the ancestors of modern pines, or perhaps the colossal scaly-barked araucaria, whose relatives still cling to existence in our own time. They are vast columns, rising hundreds of feet into a thicker, warmer atmosphere, their needles filtering a sunlight that seems greener, more primal. These trees are silent sovereigns of a world filled with strange sounds and constant, low-level peril. They are living fortresses, encased in thick, rugged bark. But even a fortress can be wounded. And this forest is a place of slow, relentless warfare. Insects with jaws and drills we have not yet imagined bore into the bark, seeking the sweet fluids within. Fungal spores, ancient and pervasive, seek any crack or flaw to begin their work of decay. The air itself is thick with tiny, unseen dangers. In response to this, the trees have a defense. It is not a passive shield, but an active, liquid weapon. It is the tree's blood, its immune system, its liquid heart. We call it resin. When a branch snaps in the wind, or a boring beetle pierces the deep wood, the tree bleeds. But this blood is not red and fleeting. It is golden, thick and extraordinarily potent. It is a slow, viscous ooze, a river of complex chemistry pushing its way out of the wound. It is the very essence of the tree, made liquid and turned into a weapon. To be near it is to be overwhelmed by its scent. This is not the gentle perfume of a flower. It is a sharp, pungent, and almost violently chemical aroma. It is the smell of terpenes and phenols, volatile compounds designed to do one thing: to repel. It is a chemical scream, warning off attackers, suffocating invaders, and poisoning the fungi that would rot the tree's core. It is the smell of survival, ancient and uncompromising. This resin flows with a patience that is purely botanical. It does not gush, it creeps. It moves like a glacier of honey, thick and clinging, catching the strange dappled light of the Cretaceous sun. It is a liquid shield flowing over the wound, sealing it from the air and encasing the invader. A beetle that drills too deep finds itself not in a feast, but in a tomb of its own making, its limbs slowing, its breathing holes clogging, its panic preserved in a sticky, aromatic shroud. In this ancient Burmese forest, the resin flows on a scale that is hard to comprehend. These trees do not just bleed, they hemorrhage. Great, thick curtains of this golden liquid drape themselves down the massive trunks. They form slow, shining rivers that follow the contours of the bark. Where the trees are wounded near their base, this resin pools on the forest floor. It creates shallow, golden lakes, treacherous and beautiful, their surfaces shimmering in the humid air, disguised as harmless puddles of water. This is the substance that will one day become amber, but here, now, it is still alive. It is a liquid defense, a sticky trap, a chemical barrier. It is the tree's quiet, relentless answer to a world of danger. It is not yet a window into the past. It is a clear, viscous, and terribly effective participant in the present. It has sealed the wound, repelled the invader, and saved the tree. Its work done, it lies in wait, glistening on the bark, its surface slowly hardening into a thin crust, while its heart remains liquid. It is a shield that has become a stage, a defense that is now, quite by accident, a perfect and patient trap. It is waiting for something more than a beetle. It is waiting for a creature that is not an invader, but simply an unfortunate traveler, a being that will make one single fatal mistake. On the rough, ancient bark of the giant conifer, a small, feathered creature moves. It is not a bird, not as we know it, but a nascent form, perhaps a tiny dinosaur, its plumage a complex mosaic of colors that a moment ago were catching the dappled green light. It is hunting. Its world is a vertical landscape of scent and sound, a world of tiny vibrations felt through its claws, the distant rustle of a potential meal, the looming shadow of a larger predator. It is alive, alert, and entirely unaware that its existence is balanced on the edge of eternity. It moves along the branch, a quick darting motion. Perhaps it leaps for a flying insect. Perhaps it misjudges a landing, its claws grasping for purchase on a surface that looks solid. Or perhaps it is simply drawn to the glistening pool of resin, mistaking the shimmer of the golden trap for a droplet of safe, clear water. The instant its foot touches the surface, its fate is sealed. There is a moment of pure sensory confusion. This is not the solid bark it knows. It is not the cool, forgiving wetness of water. It is a thick, viscous adhesion, a contact that holds on. The creature's first instinct is to pull back, a sharp, reflexive jerk. But the resin does not let go. It yields, stretching like a golden thread, but it does not break. The creature's struggle has done the opposite of freeing it. It has only served to lower its other leg onto the surface, to bring its belly, with its delicate feathers, into contact with the trap. Now, a true primal panic begins. It thrashes, it beats its small feathered wings against the air, but the air is too far away. Its wings, too, make contact with the resin, and in a second they are rendered useless. They are heavy, matted, and bound to its body. The chaotic, vibrant sounds of the Cretaceous forest, the insectile hum, the reptilian calls, are suddenly irrelevant. The creature's world has shrunk to this single point of contact, this patch of golden, suffocating honey. The smell, which from a distance was a mere warning, is now a suffocating cloud. The pungent chemical sharpness of the terpenes floods its senses, an aroma so potent it is almost a physical weight. The resin is not just a physical trap, it is a chemical one. Its fumes are overpowering, and the liquid itself begins to clog the small openings through which the creature breathes. Yet the resin is in no hurry. It is patient. A second wave of the liquid, a fresh bleed from the tree's wound, begins to flow over the first. This new river is warm and slow, and it creeps with a terrifying deliberation. The creature, now weakened, can only watch as the golden tide rises. It covers the legs, the stomach, the hopelessly bound wings. It climbs the neck, reaching the head. There is a final, terrible instant, a moment suspended in time, where the creature's eye, a perfect dark bead, is still uncovered. It looks out from its amber tomb for the last time. It sees a distorted, golden-hued vision of the forest it will never return to. Then the resin flows over that, too, sealing it in. A last tiny bubble of air, the final breath, is forced from its body. It rises slowly through the thick resin, a perfect silver sphere, and freezes, captured beside its owner. The struggle is over. The panic has ceased. The creature is perfectly still, its last moment of terror and life locked away. It is no longer a being, it is an inclusion. It is a flawless specimen, held in a pose of desperate, beautiful tragedy. The tree's blood, its liquid defense, has fulfilled its purpose. But the capture is only the first step. This soft, golden coffin is still vulnerable. It is still part of the living, breathing forest. Rain could wash it away. The sun's heat could degrade it. Another insect could burrow into it. For this moment to truly become eternal, the tomb itself must change. The tree's resin has captured a life. Now the earth must capture the resin. The small golden drop, heavy with its silent occupant, falls from the tree, landing softly on the damp forest floor. It is covered by a leaf, then by soil, and the long, slow, crushing darkness begins. The moment of capture is over. The long alchemy of transformation has just begun. The golden drop lies on the floor of the Cretaceous world. A damp, fragrant leaf, itself a relic of a tree we will never know, falls and covers it. Then another. The soil of the forest floor, a rich, dark carpet of decay and fungal networks, slowly creeps over it. A seasonal flood, a gentle inundation from a sluggish river, deposits a layer of fine, cool silt. The world above, with its strange sounds and green light, is sealed away. The tomb is now buried, and its long, long journey into darkness begins. What follows is a sleep so deep that our own lives are but a flicker in comparison. The resin, with its trapped and silent occupant, begins to sink. It is buried by the weight of its own world. More centuries of falling leaves, the bodies of small creatures, the slow accumulation of a living forest, all press down from above. The weight is not violent. It is a slow, patient and insistent pressure, a crushing embrace that builds over millennia. The resin is now in a realm of perfect stillness and silence, a mile beneath the forest that gave it life. The world is no longer measured in days or seasons, but in the slow geothermal warmth of the planet's own heart. This gentle, persistent heat, combined with the immense pressure, begins the real alchemy. The resin is not a passive substance. It begins to change. The volatile compounds, the sharp, pungent terpenes that were once its chemical weapons, are the first to go. They are cooked away, driven out molecule by molecule, leaving the resin denser, harder, and more stable. The resin's own internal structure begins to weave itself together, the long chains of molecules locking into place. It is a process of polymerization, a slow curing that happens in the dark. It is no longer just sticky resin. It has become copal, a subfossil, a halfway ghost. It is harder, but it is not yet eternal. It is a thing in between, a substance in the process of forgetting its liquid self. And still, time pours over it. Thousands of years become tens of thousands. The forest far above is gone, replaced by a shallow sea as the continents themselves shift and the oceans rise. The weight of this new ocean, a column of water miles deep, now presses down on the buried tomb. The pressure is unimaginable, the darkness absolute. The world above is remade. Dinosaurs, the great rulers of that ancient forest, reach their end in a flash of celestial fire. Their entire dynasty vanishes from the earth, but the golden drop, buried deep in the sediment, knows nothing of this. It simply sleeps, its own transformation continuing, undisturbed by the apocalypse. The age of mammals dawns. New forests rise, new oceans form. The continents we know today are beginning to take shape, and still the pressure and the heat continue their slow, methodical work. The copal, that intermediate ghost, is pushed to its final change. The molecules are not just linked, they are cross-linked, welded together in a new and profoundly stable configuration. The substance has turned its back on its organic origins. It has shed its identity as the blood of a tree and has become something new. It is no longer a resin, it is amber. It is a natural plastic, a mineraloid, a substance of profound resilience. It is impervious to water, resistant to decay, a perfect vessel. The small feathered creature trapped within its heart has been held in a state of suspended animation while the entire world outside has been unwritten and written anew, 10 million times over. After 100 million years of this slow, crushing, transformative sleep, the alchemy is complete. The earth, in its relentless tectonic breathing, buckles. The ancient seafloor, which was once a forest, is lifted. It is thrust upward, rising slowly, millimeter by millimeter, to become a new mountain range. And now, for the first time in an eon, the darkness begins to recede. Erosion, the patient work of wind and rain, begins to carve away the soft stone that encased the amber. The golden tomb is brought slowly, gently, back into the light. It is found by a new kind of creature, a being of consciousness and curiosity, who looks into its polished, golden heart and sees a perfect, silent ghost looking back. This is not a fossil as we know it. It is something more. It is not an echo, but the voice itself. To understand why amber is so profound, we must first understand what it is not. We must think about what a normal fossil tells us. When we find the bone of a dinosaur, we are not, in fact, holding its bone. We are holding a piece of stone, a rock that has taken the shape of a bone. The original material, the living calcium and marrow, is gone. It was dissolved away, molecule by molecule, over millions of years, and replaced by grains of silica or calcite, carried in by the slow, patient seepage of groundwater. A stone fossil is a mineral echo. It is an outline, a blueprint, a suggestion of a life that once was. It tells us about shape and size, about the hard parts, the skeleton, the architecture of a creature. But it is silent on almost everything else. It tells us nothing of the skin, the eyes, the color, the soft and vulnerable parts that truly make a creature alive. A stone fossil is an absence, a void that the earth has filled with rock to remember what was once there. It is a magnificent but crushing form of preservation. Amber is different. Amber is not an echo. It is the voice, captured and held. It is not a replacement. It is the thing itself held in a perfect golden stasis. The creature trapped within is not a mineral ghost. It is the physical body, dehydrated, embalmed, and sealed away from the forces of decay. The water was drawn from its tissues almost instantly, and the resin's antiseptic, antifungal chemistry halted the bacteria and fungi that would have begun the work of breaking it down. It is a perfect burial, a natural mummification that preceded the transformation of the resin itself. Because it is not crushed by rock, amber preserves the most delicate and impossible of details. It preserves the three-dimensional form of the creature. We are not looking at a flattened two-dimensional outline. We are looking at a being in the round. We can see the space between its legs, the delicate curve of its underside, the way a wing was folded in its last, desperate moment. We can see the creature's volume, its physical presence in the world. And in that physical presence, we find details that should have turned to dust in a heartbeat. We see the microscopic hairs that lined a spider's leg, each one a perfect tapering filament, perhaps used to sense the vibrations of the air. We see the compound eye of a fly, an intricate honeycomb of hundreds of individual lenses, uncrushed and unblemished, still staring out from its tomb. We can see the delicate, veined transparency of a wing, so thin it is almost invisible, yet held perfectly taut. We can even see the ghost of color. While the chemical pigments of a creature's life often fade, the structural colors, the colors made by light itself refracting off microscopic surfaces, can be preserved. We see the metallic, iridescent sheen on a beetle's carapace, a shimmer of blue and green that is not a pigment, but a physical structure. We see the first hints of the complex branching of a dinosaur's feather, its barbules holding a pattern that once scattered the Cretaceous sunlight in a very specific and perhaps beautiful way. This is a window of perfect stillness. A stone fossil shows us that something died. Amber shows us how something lived. It captures not just an animal, but a moment. It captures relationships. We find a parasite clinging to the feather that was its entire world. We find a predator and its prey locked in a struggle that will never be resolved. We find a mother in the very act of giving birth. This is a form of preservation so perfect that it feels like a form of magic, a quiet, impossible miracle. It is a photograph taken 100 million years before the invention of the camera. It is a library, a gallery, a silent museum where each exhibit is a real and final moment. But a window, for all its perfection, is only a window. It is a pane of golden glass that allows us to look through. And as we stare into the heart of this ancient, frozen light, we are compelled to ask, what world are we seeing on the other side? What was this place that could produce such trees and such resin and such strange, strange creatures? Now that we understand the nature of this golden tomb, we must turn our gaze outward, through it, and try to piece together the lost world that was waiting to be trapped. We must try to imagine the forest itself. Before we look at the creatures, we must try to stand in the forest that trapped them. We must attempt to breathe its air and feel its weight. This is perhaps the hardest part of our journey, because this world, this Burmese forest of the mid-Cretaceous, is not our world. It is a place as alien to us as the surface of another planet. Geology tells us that the piece of land we now call Myanmar was, at this time, an island continent, a great, isolated fragment that had broken free from the supercontinent of Gondwana. It was adrift in the warm, primordial Tethys Ocean, a vast body of water that has long since vanished. It was a tropical island, but a tropical world on a scale and of a nature that we cannot truly comprehend. The world was warmer then, perhaps dramatically so. There were no polar ice caps, and the oceans were high, spilling across the continents in vast, shallow seas. This island forest was a humid, supercharged greenhouse, a world of constant dripping moisture and immense, slow-growing life. And then there was the air itself. The air of the Cretaceous was a different substance. The atmosphere was thicker, heavier, and saturated with a much higher concentration of oxygen, perhaps as high as 30%, compared to our modest 21%. This oxygen-rich air, a product of immense global forests, would have been a shock to our own lungs. It would have felt thick, almost like breathing a thin liquid, and it would have fueled a different kind of life. Fire in this world would have been a terrifying, explosive thing, a flash of white-hot hunger. And metabolism, the very engine of life, would have been different, faster, more intense. This was the world that fostered the giants. This was the air that the dinosaurs breathed. Though our amber window rarely shows them, their presence defines this forest. They are the unseen context for everything we find. Their footsteps, heavy and rhythmic, would have shaken the very ground, the impact resonating up the trunks of the great resin-bearing trees. They are the shadows that pass overhead, the immense grazing titans that carve paths through the undergrowth, and the swift, terrifying predators whose movements dictate the lives of all smaller things. But the forest floor, the place where our amber was born, belonged to a different community. This was not a forest of soft grasses which had not yet evolved. The ground was a carpet of a different green. Vast, intricate meadows of ferns, some as large as trees themselves, covered the earth. Ancient plants called cycads, resembling squat, armored palms, studded the landscape. And everywhere there was moss, thick, damp, and primal. And in this ancient primal green, a revolution was quietly beginning. Here, in this very forest, a new kind of life was unfurling. Small, perhaps inconspicuous, but destined to change the planet forever. The first flowers were opening. They were likely not the great, showy blooms of our world, but small, strange, waxy structures. This was the dawn of a new partnership, a new co-evolution between plant and insect that would repaint the entire globe. This, then, is the stage. A humid, oxygen-rich island world dominated by giant dinosaurs and ancient towering conifers. A forest floor of ferns and mosses where the first flowers are secretly blooming. It is a world of immense, slow power, a world of deep, damp green and brown. It is a world saturated with the pungent aromatic scent of resin. We can almost see it now, a vast alien cathedral of wood and leaf, silent, heavy, and waiting. But this silence is an illusion. A forest, even one 100 million years old, is never truly silent. It is a living place, and to understand it, we must do more than see it. We must listen. We must try to hear the sounds of this lost canopy. If we were to stand in this forest, our first impression would be of its silence, but it would be a false silence, a profound misunderstanding. We would be listening for the wrong things. We are tuned by a lifetime of experience to the sounds of our modern world, the melodic, complex songs of finches and robins, the high, sweet chorus of a dawn, the familiar hum of our own age. This ancient forest has none of those. To hear this world, we must first forget the music we know and learn to listen to a different, deeper, and stranger score. The baseline of this world, the constant, ever-present sound, is the wind. But it is not a wind that whistles through the leaves of an oak. It is a wind moving through a billion needles, the needles of the giant conifers. It is a sifting, resinous whisper, a vast, sighing sound that is the very breath of the canopy. It is a sound that is both full and empty, a sound that has been continuous for 1 million years. Beneath this, woven into it, is the sound of the insects. In the thick, oxygen-rich air, the insect world is not a subtle hum, it is an orchestra. It is a dry, chitinous, and electric sound. Imagine a pervasive, high-pitched static, the sound of countless tiny, armored bodies moving, flying, and hunting. There is the deep, resonant drone of beetles, perhaps larger than any we know today, their wings beating the heavy air with a sound like a low string. There is the rhythmic, almost mechanical clicking and scraping of giant katydids or their ancestors, a sound that is not a song, but a sharp, percussive declaration of territory. It is a soundscape of clicks, whirs, and a constant underlying electric tension. From the damp floor, from the world of ferns and mosses, comes a different set of sounds. The soft, wet, and throaty calls of the first frogs, less a chorus and more a series of isolated, damp plops of sound. The quick, dry scuttling of lizards, their scales whispering over rock and bark. And somewhere in the deepest, darkest undergrowth, the furtive, almost silent movements of our own distant ancestors. Small, nocturnal and terrified, the first mammals make almost no sound at all, their existence a quiet, nervous rustle in the great reptilian darkness. And then there are the birds, or rather the creatures that are not yet truly birds. The canopy is full of the enantiorniths, the opposite birds. They are a different kind of avian, a different experiment. They have claws on their wings, many of them have teeth in their beaks, and because of this, they do not sing. The complex musical syrinx of a modern songbird is a future invention. The sounds of this canopy are guttural, sharp, and reptilian. They are short, piercing chirps. They are hisses. They are harsh, grating squawks as they compete for a branch or warn of danger. The trees are not filled with melody. They are filled with sudden, functional, and alien alarms. And finally, punctuating this entire strange orchestra are the sounds of the true rulers. These sounds are not constant, but when they come, they silence everything else. There is the low, resonant boom of a large sauropod, a call so deep it is felt in the chest more than it is heard by the ear, a sound that travels for miles through the thick air. There is the shuddering, percussive thud of its footsteps, a rhythm that shakes the ground and sends vibrations up the trunks of the very trees we are imagining. And then there is the sound of the hunt, a sudden piercing shriek from a smaller predator, a raptor perhaps, a sound of such focused reptilian violence that it freezes the blood. And in its wake, an even more profound sound, the sudden, absolute, and terrified silence of the forest, the collective, breathless moment as the shadow passes. This is the sound of the Cretaceous canopy. It is not a harmony, it is an acoustic landscape of pure function, a world of warnings, of threats, of territorial claims, and of the constant underlying hum of the insectile engine. It is a strange, jarring, and deeply primal soundscape. And listening to it all, absorbing it all, are the silent witnesses, the great, impassive, living columns that are the source of this world's golden tears. They are the true giants, the silent, unmoving audience to this 100-million-year-old drama. And at the center of this strange and jarring soundscape, the source of this whole world, are the silent witnesses. They are the great, still, unmoving beings who hear every sound, who feel every vibration, and who hold the memory of this time in their very sap. They are the trees, the amber giants. They are the true rulers of this forest. The dinosaurs, for all their power and terror, are fleeting. They are ephemeral guests, dynasties of flesh and bone that will rise and fall. But these trees are the landscape itself. They are the houses of this world, the cathedrals within which all this frantic life takes place. They are beings that measure their existence not in days or years, but in centuries, in millennia. We do not know their exact names, the lost species that created this ocean of resin, but we can infer their lineage. They were likely conifers, ancient relatives of the great Kari or Araucaria pines, a family of trees that is itself a living fossil, a holdover from a time when the world was different. To stand at the base of one would be to feel utterly dwarfed. These are not the slender, familiar trees of our own time. They are columns, vast and primeval, their trunks so wide that a dozen people could not encircle them. Their bark is not a smooth skin, but a kind of armor, a thick, scaly and rugged landscape of its own, covered in mosses and ancient lichens. They tower hundreds of feet into the thick, humid air, their highest branches forming a canopy so dense that it creates a world of permanent green twilight on the forest floor. Up there, in the hazy, oxygen-rich light, their leaves are not soft, flat paddles. They are stiff, sharp needles, or perhaps tough, waxy, overlapping scales, designed to endure, to resist, to hold on. They are ancient, efficient engines of photosynthesis, turning the strange, pale, Cretaceous sun into wood, into life, and into resin. These trees are the architects of this entire ecosystem. They dictate the terms of life. Their shade determines what can grow beneath them. Their roots, massive and sprawling, stabilize the very earth. And their blood, their prolific golden resin, is a defining chemical force in the forest. We must ask why. Why did they produce so much of this substance, so much more than any modern tree? The answer lies in the very sounds we just imagined. That world of constant, clicking, boring, and buzzing peril. This was a forest at war. The trees were under a relentless million-year siege from insects evolved to eat them, fungi evolved to rot them. The resin was their defense, their liquid armor, their chemical warfare. They survived by bleeding, by drowning their attackers in a pungent golden flood. They are the great, silent and patient gods of this island world. A single one of these trees may have been ancient when the first dinosaurs walked the land. They are living on a different timescale, a slow, geological pulse of life, the frantic scuttling of a lizard, the harsh squawk of an opposite bird, the life and death struggle of a tiny mammal. All this is a frantic, high-speed blur against the backdrop of their slow, contemplative growth. They are the impassive audience to the drama, and in a final, profound irony, these great, still, silent beings are the ones who will tell the story. Unwittingly, through their own self-defense, they have become the perfect historians. Their blood, their golden tears, shed to save themselves, will become the library that saves everything else. They are the amber giants, the source of the window. And now, let us leave their towering crowns and follow their massive, armor-plated trunks down to the ground. Let us step off the bark and into the damp, green and perilous world that thrives in their shadows. We must descend to the floor of this lost world. We descend from the vast, armored trunk of the amber giant, leaving the vertical world of the bark and stepping down into the permanent, green twilight. The light here is different. It is not the bright, direct light of the sun, but a filtered, bruised and ancient light. A green, watery illumination that has passed through 100 meters of needles and branches. The air is heavy. It is thick with moisture, with the scent of wet earth, and with the rich, pervasive perfume of decay. And beneath it all, the sharp, aromatic tang of the resin, which has dripped from the giants above to form treacherous golden puddles in the hollows of the earth. This is the floor of the lost world, and the first thing we notice is the silence of a single color. There is no grass. The very concept of a soft green lawn has not yet been imagined by the earth. In its place is a landscape of a more primal and complex green. Endless, intricate carpets of ferns unfurl in every direction, their fractal patterns a testament to an older, slower geometry of life. Thick, vibrant cushions of moss, a green so deep it is almost black, cover the rotting logs and the exposed roots of the great trees. And rising from this damp carpet are the cycads, squat armored plants that look like a fusion of a pineapple and a palm. Their stiff, spiky leaves a defense against the unseen grazers. This is a world built on a different scale. The dinosaurs, whose booming calls and heavy footsteps define the forest's acoustic, are the high rulers, but this world, the ground, does not truly belong to them. It is the kingdom of the small. It is a world of infinite, hidden spaces. To walk here would be to walk on a deep, damp and rustling bed of leaf litter, but the leaves are not the soft, papery things of our own age. They are the tough, waxy needles and leathery fronds of the ancient canopy, and they have been accumulating for centuries. This layer, perhaps feet thick, is not a dead thing. It is a metropolis. It is a labyrinth of tunnels, of chambers, of damp, hidden highways. This is the true stage for our amber drama. This is the world that the resin has captured. It is teeming with a density of life that is almost unimaginable. In this leaf litter, a million tiny, armored and alien lives are playing out a constant, silent and brutal drama. This is the hunting ground for the spiders, the ants, the pseudoscorpions and the centipedes. It is a world of constant, low-level vibration, of chemical trails, of a life lived through scent and touch in the near-total darkness beneath the leaves. Here, in the shadows, the tiny, feathered dinosaurs, the ones that are small enough to be caught, dart through the fern meadows, hunting for the giant insects. Here, the first, shy mammals, living a life of terrified obscurity, burrow for safety. The air hums with the sound of creatures that we will soon meet, creatures that seem to be born from a different imagination. This forest floor is a place of profound beauty, but it is not a gentle place. It is a world of fangs, of venoms, of specialized hunters, and of bodies built for defense. It is a microscopic, million-year war. And it is here, on this stage of damp earth and rotting ferns, that the golden traps lie in wait. The resin that has pooled at the base of the great trees, disguised as puddles of water, glistening in the faint green light, is about to become a perfect, permanent record. It is waiting to capture the citizens of this frantic, hidden, and ancient kingdom. It is time to open the gallery. It is time to meet the ghosts. Of all the inclusions held within the Golden Gallery, one stands apart. It is a piece that, when it was first revealed, sent a quiet, profound shock through the world of science. It is not an insect. It is not a spider. It is something that should not exist in this form, a fragment of a creature that should, by all rights, have turned to dust or been crushed into a two-dimensional mineral echo. It is a ghost. It is a small, delicate wisp of a thing, barely an inch and a half long, captured in a gentle curve. To a casual glance, it might be mistaken for a piece of a plant, a feathery frond from one of the ancient ferns. But a closer look, a look through the lens of a microscope, reveals an impossible and heart-stopping architecture. There are bones, we can see them. 8 small articulated vertebrae, the tapering delicate end of a spine. And erupting from this column of bone, in perfect three-dimensional preservation, is a dense, soft and intricate plume of feathers. This is the tale of a dinosaur. We must pause and let the weight of that statement settle. This is not a fossil impression. This is not a guess. It is the thing itself. The flesh, the skin, the ligaments, the bone, and the plumage of a creature that lived 100 million years ago, held in a state of perfect, unchanging stillness. It is a moment when a creature we have only ever known through the cold, hard, and alien medium of rock was suddenly, shockingly, revealed in the warm, intimate, and organic medium of amber. The creature it belonged to was small, perhaps no larger than a sparrow. It was a juvenile coelurosaur, a member of the great and varied group of theropods that includes the ancestors of modern birds. This was not a lumbering giant. It was a small, vibrant, and warm-blooded spark of life darting through the fern meadows on the forest floor. But it is the feathers that hold the deepest secrets. They are not the feathers of modern flight. They lack the strong central shaft, the raches, that zips the barbs of a bird's feather into a stiff, aerodynamic vein. Instead, the shafts are thin and flexible, and the barbs branch off freely, creating a soft, almost downy plume. These feathers were useless for flight. Their purpose was something else. They speak of a life lived on the ground, a life where feathers meant insulation, a soft, warm layer held against the skin to trap body heat in the cool, damp air of the forest. And they speak, perhaps, of display. We can see the color. The amber has held it for us, a final, generous gift. The feathers are a rich, chestnut brown on the upper surface of the tail, fading to a pale, almost white blonde on the underside. We can see the very pattern of its pigment. It is an almost unbearably intimate detail. We are not just looking at a specimen, we are looking at a creature's camouflage, or its genetic signal to a mate, or the simple, beautiful pattern it was born with. Let us imagine it. A small, nervous and agile being, its large eyes scanning the green twilight of the forest floor. It hunts for the giant, armored insects, and in turn is hunted by larger predators. Its feathered tail, which it holds aloft, is not for flight, but for balance as it leaps and darts, a flash of chestnut and white in the filtered ancient light. And in one terrible, unthinking moment, it brushed too close to a river of golden resin. Perhaps it struggled, and the tail, the part that was caught, simply broke away, a small, traumatic price paid for survival. Or perhaps the tiny creature itself was taken, and this is just the fragment that the amber, in its strange editorial wisdom, chose to show us. This feathered ghost is a profound connection. It is a tangible physical bridge, proving in a way no stone fossil ever could that the line between the great terrestrial dinosaurs and the creatures of the air was not a line at all. It was a soft, feathered and gradual spectrum. This tail, for all its beauty, was an appendage of the ground. But in the very same forest, in the canopy high above, another group of creatures was using its own feathers for a different, more revolutionary purpose. They were not just feathered, they were winged. From the ground we now lift our gaze. We move from the fern-covered floor, the realm of the feathered tail, and ascend the massive, armored trunk of the amber giant. We climb up into the high canopy, that green, dappled world of jarring reptilian calls we imagined earlier. And here, in the same golden tombs, we find the creatures that made those sounds. We find more than just a tail. We find a wing. It is a complete, articulated wing, smaller than a thumbnail, its bones as thin as filaments. And attached to these bones are the feathers, not the soft, downy plumes of the ground dweller, but stiff, sharp, aerodynamic feathers designed for flight. And at the joint of the wing, a final, shocking detail, a tiny, sharp, curving claw, a reptilian grapple protruding from the feathered edge. In other, even more profound pieces, we find an entire head, its beak lined not with a smooth, horny sheath, but with a row of tiny, sharp, needle-like teeth. And in the most miraculous specimen of all, we find a nearly complete hatchling, a creature so small it could rest on a fingertip. It is a perfect, heartbreaking miniature, its entire body, from its toothed snout to its clawed wings and feathered legs, held in a single, golden moment. We are looking at the Enantiorniths. The name means opposite birds. It is a name given by scientists, a quiet, academic label for a concept that is profound. They were opposite because their very architecture, deep in their skeletons, was a mirror image of the birds we know. The way their shoulder bones connected, the intricate joint that allows for the powerful modern flight stroke, was fused in a different, opposite orientation. But their differences were more than skeletal. They were a different idea of what a bird could be. They were not the ancestors of the robins and eagles of our world. They were an entirely separate, parallel, and, in this Cretaceous forest, spectacularly successful experiment. In this world, they were the dominant avian form. Our own ancestors, the progenitors of all modern birds, were a small, quiet, and overshadowed minority. The opposite birds ruled this canopy, and the amber shows us how they did it. Those claws on their wings were not a useless evolutionary echo. The hatchling in the amber, though impossibly small, already has a full set of flight feathers. This is a crucial alien detail. Modern birds are born naked, blind, and helpless, demanding to be fed. This creature, it seems, was born ready. It hatched, and within moments, it was climbing. It was a four-limbed creature, using its feet and its winged claws to scramble through the complex three-dimensional world of the high branches. It was a climber, a clamberer, a tiny feathered reptile learning to fly. And it was in this act, this scrambling, vulnerable moment, that the amber found it. This hatchling was not a soaring, majestic hunter. It was a baby, sticky, clumsy, and small. It was moving through the great conifer's branches, perhaps following a parent, perhaps just exploring. It put its foot on the wrong surface. It touched the golden, glistening, and patient trap. The specimen is a frozen moment of this struggle. We can see the detail. The creature's mouth is open, its toothed beak perhaps issuing a final, silent, unheard cry. Its wings are splayed, the claws extended, caught in the very act of trying to pull itself free. The amber, in its perfect, passionless clarity, shows us the soft tissue, the skin, the delicate eyelids. It shows us a creature that was alive, warm, and terrified. These were the true rulers of the Cretaceous sky. They filled the air with their harsh, unmusical calls, their toothed beaks snapping at the giant insects, their clawed wings gripping the resinous bark. They were a successful and vibrant form of life, and yet not a single one of them survived the great extinction that killed the dinosaurs. Their entire opposite lineage was wiped from the earth, leaving only these perfect, golden, and tragic ghosts. They were the dominant birds of this lost world. But the forest, in its infinite, strange imagination, held other tiny, feathered phantoms, including one that would challenge our very definition of what a dinosaur and a bird could be. The forest, in its strange and infinite imagination, held many phantoms, but none have proven to be as strange, as challenging, or as enigmatic as the one that was announced to the world in a flash of celebration, only to be drawn back into the shadows of scientific mystery. It is a creature that challenges our very definitions, a being that forced us to question the line between reptile and bird, and in doing so revealed the profound, almost deceptive nature of Cretaceous evolution. It is a phantom that arrived as a single, perfect skull, suspended in a small golden teardrop. It was perhaps the most startling inclusion ever found. When it was first described, it was presented to the world as a miracle, the smallest dinosaur ever to have existed. Its name was Oculudentavis kaungrai, a name that means, quite poetically, the eye-tooth bird. It was impossibly small. The skull itself is less than an inch long, suggesting a creature that in life would have rivaled the bee hummingbird, the tiniest bird of our own age. It was a breathtaking thought. To imagine, in the same forest as the great theropods, a dinosaur of such microscopic, delicate proportions, a hummingbird-like creature from 100 million years ago. But this was no gentle nectar sipper. The skull, for all its delicacy, held a profound and savage secret. Its long, slender beak was not a beak at all. It was a jaw, and it was lined with a terrifying number of teeth. Not just a few reptilian spikes, but more than 100 sharp, conical teeth, extending all the way back beneath the eye. This was not a hummingbird. This was a predator, a microscopic hunter, A T-Rex, perhaps, for the world of the very, very small. But it was the eye that held the deepest strangeness, the detail that began the whispers of doubt. The name Oculudentavis, the eye-tooth bird, was an understatement. The creature's eye socket was enormous, dominating its skull, larger than its own brain case. But it was not the forward-facing binocular eye of a hunter bird. It was positioned on the side of its head, and the bones of its scleral ring, the delicate plates that supported the eyeball, were not the simple ring of a bird. They were shaped like spoons, overlapping to form a deep, rigid cone. This is an architecture seen today only in certain lizards. This creature did not see the world as a bird does. Its enormous eye, fixed in that conical, lizard-like stare, was a different kind of window. It was an eye built for daylight, an eye that could see with a sharpness that we can barely imagine. But it was not the eye of any bird or any dinosaur that we had ever known. The questions began to mount. The teeth, the eye, the strange shape of the skull. The scientific world, in its great, slow and grinding process of self-correction, began to turn. The beautiful, hummingbird-sized dinosaur began to look less like a bird and more like something else entirely. And then a second specimen was found. This one, named Oculudentavis naga, was more complete. It included the skull and parts of the body, and it was unmistakably a lizard. The tiniest dinosaur, the eye-tooth bird, was a phantom after all. It was not a bird. It was not a dinosaur. It was a reptile of a kind so strange, so bizarrely adapted, that it had evolved in parallel to perfectly mimic the shape of a bird's head. It was a product of convergent evolution, a testament to the Cretaceous forest's power to fill every possible niche, including, it seems, the niche of a hummingbird lizard predator. It is perhaps an even more wondrous creature for this revelation. It is an enigma, a lizard so strange that it fooled the world's best scientists. It tells us that this ancient forest was a place of profound illusion, of mimics and deceptions, a world where the lines between forms were still being drawn and sometimes spectacularly blurred. Even as a lizard, it remains one of the most bizarre vertebrates ever found. Its story is a quiet lesson in the humility of science, a reminder that the amber does not give up its secrets easily. It presents us with phantoms, and it forces us to question what we believe we know. It is a reminder of the amber's greatest power. It does not just show us creatures, it shows us the complex relationships between them. Sometimes, that relationship is between a predator and its mimic prey. And sometimes, as the amber reveals in moments of almost unbearable intimacy, it is a relationship even smaller, a world of life living on life. The amber window does not just show us the actors, it shows us the entire intricate stage, down to the smallest, most intimate, and sometimes unsettling details. We see the great dramas, the toothed bird, the feathered tail, but now we must lean closer. We must look again at that feathered ghost, that wisp of a dinosaur's tail. We must adjust our vision, moving past the beauty of the plumage, and look within it. For in that soft brown and white landscape, in that miniature forest of barbs and barbules, another life was being lived. In pieces of amber, sometimes associated with these very feathers, we find other impossibly small inclusions. We find creatures that are the very definition of a calm chill. We find parasites. We find the small, armored and specialized beings that lived on the giants, the tiny vampires and scavengers of the Cretaceous. Imagine a tick, a creature we know from our own world with a shudder of discomfort. We find its ancient relatives here, not just the tick, but a specific horrifying kind, sometimes referred to as Dinocraton, the terrible tick. We find them clinging to a feather, their barbed mouthparts ready. These creatures, or their relatives, waited in the damp fern meadows, sensing not the heat of a deer, but the warmth and vibration of a small feathered dinosaur brushing past. They fed on dinosaur blood. This is a detail of almost profound intimacy. It grounds these magnificent, almost mythical beings in a reality that is deeply familiar. The dinosaurs, for all their alien grandeur, got itchy. They were annoyed. They were plagued by the same small, persistent and bloodthirsty creatures that plague us. It collapses the distance of 100 million years, connecting us to them through the shared, mundane, and universal experience of irritation. But the amber holds things even more specific, even more personal. In one piece, a louse-like insect, a new and ancient species, is found clinging to the shaft of a feather. This creature was not a temporary visitor, like a tick. It was a permanent resident. Its entire life, its entire universe, was the feathered body of its host. Let us imagine it. This tiny wingless insect, perhaps the size of a grain of sand, lived its whole existence crawling through the dense, warm and dark forest of the plumage. It fed, perhaps, on the feather itself or on the skin flakes at its base. Its world was defined by the contours of its host, the scent of the dinosaur's skin, the rhythmic warmth of its blood. Then, in a single moment, the host molted or was brushed by a predator, and this single feather, this entire world, was torn free. It drifted down through the thick green air, the tiny parasite still clinging to it, unknowing, its entire universe now falling, and it landed, not on the damp earth, but on the sticky, golden and patient surface of the resin pool. The amber captures them both, frozen together in a single, tragic and beautiful vignette. It is a fossil, not of one creature, but of a relationship. It is the louse and its host, the parasite and its plumaged world, captured for eternity. The amber does not just show us life, it shows us coexistence, dependence, and the intricate hidden webs that bound this ancient world together. These small, specialized lives tell us as much as the great skeletons. They speak of a world of complex, interdependent ecosystems, a world of blood and skin and feathers. And this intimacy was not reserved for the feathered creatures. In the same golden tombs, we find that the scaly creatures of this forest were also participants in this intricate microscopic drama, held just as perfectly in their own golden coffins. The intimacy of the amber is not limited to these microscopic relationships. The golden trap, in its arbitrary and perfect power, was not only a net for the smallest of beings. Sometimes it took a life of a different scale. It took a creature that was itself a complex, specialized, and successful predator. It took a being of scales and claws and cold ancient blood. We look again into the golden light, and this time, a different phantom stares back. It is not a fragment. It is not a feather. It is a complete animal held whole. A lizard, perhaps 4 inches long, floats in the center of its tomb. It is a moment of such perfect preservation that it feels intrusive to look upon it. This is not a specimen. It is a body. The creature is held in a pose of suspended action. Its body is arched, its head turned back as if in a final desperate attempt to look behind itself. Its limbs are splayed, its tiny 5-fingered claws spread wide, caught in the very act of scrambling for a purchase that was not there. This is a photograph of its last second, and the details are almost overwhelming. We are not looking at the impression of scales. We are looking at the scales themselves. We can see their shape, their size, their perfect imbricated pattern, a suit of natural reptilian chainmail. They are so perfectly preserved that we can see the way they transition from the fine, granular scales on its belly to the larger, tougher, keeled scales along its back. We can see the delicate, paper-thin fold of skin along its side, a detail that would turn to dust in an instant upon death in the open forest. We can see its limbs, the slender, muscular legs of a runner, an agile hunter that darted through the fern meadows. And at the end of those limbs, the claws. They are perfect, translucent, sharp and curving needles, the tools of its life, the instruments it used to grip the vast, armored bark of the amber giants, the very tools that failed it in its final moment. But it is the head that holds the most profound and most unsettling detail. Its mouth is slightly open, as if in a silent gasp, and its eye, that window to its own lost consciousness, is there. It is not an empty socket. The delicate, vulnerable eyeball is preserved, and over it we can see the paper-thin, translucent skin of its eyelid. The amber has captured the very membrane that once flickered across its vision, the lid that protected its gaze from the dust and spores of the Cretaceous floor. To look at this creature is to feel a strange and deep connection. This is not an opposite bird. This is not an eye-tooth enigma. This is, in its essence, a lizard. It is a form we recognize. We can see, in its perfect scaly architecture, the unmistakable blueprint of the geckos, the skinks, and the chameleons of our own world. This is an ancestor, a great-great-grandfather of 1,000 generations, staring back at us from a time when our own mammalian line was nothing but a collection of tiny, shivering shadows. It is a tangible link, a warm, organic, and deeply personal piece of evidence. It shows us that while the forest was filled with strange and experimental forms, it was also home to lineages of a profound and enduring success, designs so perfect that they would survive the fire that ended the dinosaurs and continue, almost unchanged, into our own time. This lizard is a testament to resilience, a quiet promise of survival. It is the familiar, scaly form of a reptile. But in this same forest, another stranger branch of the reptilian tree was slithering unseen through the damp leaf litter, a creature that had only just begun its long, legless journey. In that same damp labyrinth of the forest floor, another form of reptilian life was perfecting a new and radical kind of motion. It was not a scuttling, but a gliding, a silent muscular ribbon navigating the unseen world beneath the ferns, a hunter that had made one of the most profound evolutionary gambles in the history of life. It had given up its limbs. We find it as if it were an illustration in a forgotten book, a tiny infant snake, perfectly preserved. Its scientific name is Xiaophis, a ghost from a time when the identity of snakes was still a new and unfolding story. It is a creature of almost impossible delicacy, its slender body thinner than a bootlace, coiled in a gentle S shape. We can see its tiny, perfect head, its almost invisible scales, its entire fragile skeleton. This is not a monster, it is a baby, and it was likely born in this very leaf litter. But its existence in this amber tomb is a clue of profound importance. For a long time, scientists have debated the origin of snakes. Did they evolve in the ocean, their legs fading away as they became aquatic swimmers? Or did they evolve on land, sacrificing their limbs to become master burrowers, to hunt in a world that no legged creature could access? This tiny infant predator, found in the resin of a forest tree, is a powerful, golden piece of evidence. It tells us that its ancestors were terrestrial. They were creatures of the earth, of the soil, of the hidden, dark, and narrow spaces. To look at its body is to see a key, an anatomical key designed to fit the locks of this subterranean world. It was a creature that could follow its prey into the tightest root tunnels, into the hollows of rotting logs, into the secret spaces of the forest floor's deep, dark metropolis. This tiny creature, in its silent golden tomb, is a whisper from the very dawn of that new design. It represents the moment that this gamble paid off. It is the proof of a body plan so specialized, so perfectly adapted to this subterranean world, that its descendants would one day rule every continent. We are looking at the first, small and silent steps of a legless dynasty. This tiny infant predator was already a master of this hidden kingdom. Its world was a world of dampness, of moss, and of the soft, vulnerable bodies it hunted. It was not the only creature to stake its life on this moisture. In the same puddles and damp hollows, another, older lineage was thriving, a line of life bound inextricably to the water, a life that began its journey in a form completely different from its end. In that same damp and hidden world of the forest floor, another creature lived its life, bound even more profoundly to the moisture. It was a life that began in the shallow temporary pools of water that collected in the hollows of the earth and the cups of fallen leaves. It was a hunter, but one of a different, more ancient lineage. A lineage that carried the memory of the ocean in its very blood. The amber shows us a ghost of a different texture, not of scale, not of feather, but of soft, permeable skin. We find a froglet, a perfect, miniature and heartbreakingly fragile being. It is so small that it seems not like a creature, but the idea of a creature. It is one of the oldest true frogs ever found, a specimen named Electrorana, the amber frog. To look at it is to understand the limits of stone fossils. A creature like this would never have survived the crushing weight of mineralization. It would have dissolved, its bones finer than spun glass, its body returning to the damp earth from which it came. But the resin, in its liquid, gentle, and instantaneous embrace, captured it whole. We can see its delicate, arching spine. We can see its long, splayed legs, bent in the anatomy of a leap, a jump that it was perhaps in the very middle of when it landed not in a mossy puddle, but in the golden, suffocating pool. We can see the faint, translucent web of its feet, the paper-thin, delicate skin stretched between its tiny, thread-like toes. It is a creature of the in-between, a bridge between water and land. Its entire, delicate body was a vessel for the moisture of the forest, a living membrane that had to remain damp for it to breathe. Its life was a constant, desperate search for water, for the cool, wet patches of the forest floor. And in this, we find the quiet, chilling tragedy of its capture. The resin, glistening in the deep green twilight, would have looked identical to the very thing it needed to survive. It was a false promise. It leaped toward what it thought was life and found, in its place, a perfect, eternal death. But its existence here tells us a deeper story. It answers a question of profound scale. How did a creature so soft, so small, so utterly defenseless, survive in a world defined by the crushing, armored weight of dinosaurs? How did it exist in a forest where the thud of a titan's footstep was a constant, geological vibration, a tremor that shook the very puddles it lived in? It survived by being small, by being quiet, by living in the cracks of the world, in the spaces the giants were too large to notice. Its life was a quiet, damp and nervous one, a life of hiding beneath roots and in the heart of rotting logs, a life of listening for the deep, resonant tremors that signaled the approach of a godlike monster. This tiny, soft-bodied frog was a survivor, a testament to an ancient and successful design. It had already perfected the form it would carry, almost unchanged, for another 100 million years. It was a vertebrate hunter, a stalker of the microscopic insects that it shared this damp kingdom with. But it was not the dominant hunter in this small, dark, and hidden world. That title belonged to a different phylum entirely. It belonged to the true masters of the leaf litter, the armored, alien, and terrifyingly organized. It belonged to the insects, and among them, one group was practicing a form of predation so bizarre, it seems to be from another world. In the deep, dark, and humid metropolis of the leaf litter, the true rulers were not the vertebrates, they were the invertebrates. This was their planet, their kingdom, and they had filled it with a diversity of forms that is almost dizzying. Here, in this hidden world, the dominant social and predatory force was beginning its long global conquest. We find its members in the amber, preserved in a clarity that is almost military. We find the ants. But these are not the familiar scurrying lines of ants we know. When we look into the golden window, we see a creature that forces us to question our very understanding of what an ant is. We find a lineage that has been completely erased from the earth. A design so strange, so alien, that scientists, upon seeing it, gave it a name that speaks of its profound otherness. They are the Hydomyrmecini, the hell ants. A modern ant, the kind that might cross your kitchen floor, is a creature of horizontal efficiency. Its jaws, its mandibles work side to side, like a pair of pliers or shears. They are tools for cutting, for gripping, for carrying. They are part of a face that is compact and functional. The hell ant is a different creature entirely. It is a biological nightmare, a being built on a different axis of terror. Its head is elongated, strange, and armored, and its jaws do not move sideways. They move vertically. They are two long, curving, and often serrated blades, like a pair of sickles, that hinge upward, from its chin to its forehead. It is a design that has no parallel, no equivalent in any insect living today. And to power this terrifying scythe-like motion, the ant's entire head is a weapon. A large, horn-like projection, a clypeal paddle rises from its face. This horn, often studded with bristles or spikes, is the anvil. The long, sickle jaws are the hammer. When this creature hunted, it did not bite, it impaled. It trapped its prey, perhaps a large, struggling insect larva, between its rising jaw blades and the immovable horn on its face. It was a living, walking bear trap. We must imagine this, a creature, armored and relentless, moving with the stiff, jointed purpose of an ant, its head a complex and alien weapon, its scythe jaws held open, waiting. Its senses were not like our own. It likely navigated this dark, chaotic world through a rich tapestry of chemical smells, of pheromones, of vibrations. It was a living machine, a specialized predator, a vision of biological engineering so strange it looks less like an ant and more like a creature from a different planet, a different evolution. They were a successful and diverse group, filling the niches of this dark leaf-litter world. But like the opposite birds, they were an experiment that would not survive. Their entire, bizarre and terrifying lineage would be cut short by the same fire that ended the dinosaurs, leaving no descendants, only these perfect, golden and monstrous ghosts. We are left with the disquieting question: what was this weapon for? What kind of world, what kind of prey would require the evolution of such a complex, vertical, impaling machine? The amber, in its perfect, dispassionate clarity, does not just leave us with the question. In one single, unimaginably rare piece, it provides the answer. It shows us this very weapon, not in repose, but in the final, frozen moment of its use. The question of this weapon, this vertical, scythe-like jaw and its opposing horn, is not a question we are forced to answer with mere speculation. The forest of 100 million years ago was a place of such brutal and sudden encounters, but the amber, in its infinite and patient capacity for witness, has captured not just the weapon, but the crime itself. We are left with a piece of evidence so perfect, so damning, that it silences all debate. We look again into the golden void, and we find a scene of terrible, frozen, and exquisite drama. We find two actors, locked in a final, static embrace. The first is the hunter, a hell ant, its alien body tense with the mechanics of its kill. The second is the prey. It is a creature that is also ancient, a relative of the modern cockroach, a nymph of a long-extinct group. It is soft-bodied, armored only in its own shiny brown cuticle. We can, with a cold, clear precision, reconstruct the moment. The cockroach nymph, a creature of the dark, was moving through the damp, chaotic world of the leaf litter. Its universe was a flat landscape of fungal scent and the taste of decay. It was perhaps unaware of the specialized, silent hunter that moved in the same darkness, a creature that sensed the world not as a taste, but as a series of vibrations, a map of prey. The ant struck. It did not grasp, it did not bite. It executed a movement of pure alien geometry. We can see it in the amber. The long, sickle-like mandibles, which had been held in waiting, snapped upward in a vertical arc. The cockroach was lifted, impaled. Its soft, struggling body was pinned with a biomechanical precision between the serrated edges of those rising blades and the hard, unyielding pressure of the horn on the ant's face. It is a moment of pure, calculated, and successful predation. We can see the details of the kill. The ant's jaw has found its mark, the tip of its horn pressing the insect's body against the scythes. The cockroach, in this eternal instant, is arched in a silent, impossible rictus, its legs splayed in a final, useless, and unfilmed struggle. This is the very purpose of the hell ant's design, the answer to the riddle of its anatomy, played out for us in a silent, golden diorama. And then, in that exact, terrible instant, as the hunter and the hunted were locked in their ancient, microscopic drama, a new and greater force intervened. From the wounded giant high above, a new river of resin, warm and slow, began to flow. A single, heavy, golden drop, perhaps dislodged by the wind or by the movement of some larger creature, fell from the canopy. It landed not on the leaf litter, but on them. It was a second and final predator. The liquid gold, pungent and thick, flowed over the ant's armored body, encasing its stiff, jointed legs. It flowed over the soft, impaled body of its prey. Their shared violent struggle, the ants against its victim, the victims against the ant, became a new, unified, and equally futile struggle against the suffocating, adhesive tide. The resin filled the spaces between them, locking them together, not just as predator and prey, but as partners in this eternal golden tomb. It is one of the most profound and most chilling pieces of amber ever found. It is a fossil of a behavior. It is a single frozen frame, a snapshot of an action, a verb from 100 million years ago. It confirms, without question, that the hell ant was a specialized, sophisticated, and terrifying hunter. It shows us an evolutionary arms race in its final, brutal instant. This ant, this lingua myrmex, was a masterpiece of alien engineering, but for all its specialized terror, it was not the strangest engineer in this forest. The leaf litter, in its infinite, dark and damp complexity, was a laboratory for evolution's most daring and sometimes most baffling experiments. And moving through the same shadows as the hell ant was another creature, a being so strange in its design that it defies our sense of logic, a creature that looks like it was assembled from the leftover parts of a different, forgotten world. The leaf litter of this lost world, this Cretaceous metropolis, was a place of profound and ruthless specialization, as the hell ant has shown us. But it was also, it seems, a place of wild, almost surrealist, experimentation. It was a laboratory where evolution, unbound by the rules we now take for an iron law, was sketching out ideas that seemed to us to come from a place of dreams or of fever. The hell ant was a masterpiece of alien but understandable function. The next creature is not. We look into the amber and we find a creature that shatters our sense of order. It is a single, tiny, and profoundly confusing specimen, an insect so strange, so alien in its basic construction, that when scientists first described it, they had to create an entirely new branch of life, a new order, just to hold it. It is a taxonomic orphan, a being with no known relatives, living or dead. Its scientific name is Ethiocarinus bermanicus, but it is better known perhaps as the thing with no name. It is a creature of pure biological surrealism. At a glance, it has the body of an insect. It is small, wingless, with long, slender legs and a simple, elongated abdomen, but that is where all familiarity ends. We follow the body up to the thorax, and then we see its head. And it is here that logic seems to break apart. The head is not a normal head. It is not an oval or a sphere, or the compact, functional capsule of a normal insect. The head is a perfect flat and elongated triangle, balanced on a thin, flexible neck with the point of the triangle facing upward. It is, as many have noted, a shape uncannily like the head of the aliens of our own, modern mythology. But the details are even stranger. Its two compound eyes are not at the front. They are perched on the far rear corners of this triangle, staring out permanently to the sides. Its mouthparts are not at the front of the triangle, but at the bottom on the flat, horizontal edge. And on its neck, where the head joins the body, it has a strange paired set of glands. We must try for a moment to imagine an existence inside this body. What did the world look like to a creature whose eyes were fixed, permanently, in opposite directions? It had no binocular vision, no depth perception. It lived in a flat, panoramic world of two separate pictures. How did it hunt? How did it even navigate? And its mouth, positioned on its chin, seems almost an afterthought, an opening ill-suited for catching prey. Perhaps it was not a hunter, but a scavenger, a creature that walked over its food, its triangular head held aloft like a periscope, its sidelong gaze watching for danger. And what of the glands on its neck? The amber preserves them, but it cannot tell us their purpose. Were they defensive? Did they exude a chemical, a noxious, repellent spray to deter the hell ants and the tailed spiders that shared its dark, damp world? Was this entire, bizarre and top-heavy construction an elaborate piece of defensive architecture? We do not know. We cannot know. This creature is an evolutionary question mark. It is a body plan that was tried and that failed. It left no descendants. Its entire strange lineage, its entire order of life, is represented by this one single tiny specimen, this ghost in the golden tomb. It is an evolutionary dead end, an experiment that led nowhere. But its existence is perhaps the most profound lesson the amber can teach us. It proves that the story of life is not a simple straight line marching toward the forms we see today. It is a wild, branching and chaotic sketchbook, filled with half-finished ideas, strange doodles in the margins, and entire pages that were tried, found wanting, and torn out. Ethiocarinus is one of those pages. It is a question written in chitin and golden light, and its only answer is that the Cretaceous forest was a place of almost infinite imagination. This single freakish insect is a testament to the Cretaceous forest's willingness to experiment, to build forms that seem to defy all logic. It was a laboratory of the bizarre, and this insect was not its only creation. In the same dark, damp, and hidden world, another group of hunters was being assembled, a creature that combined the body of one predator with the tail of another, a true chimera walking the ancient earth. In this dark, damp, and perilous laboratory of the Cretaceous floor, the hunt was a constant underlying rhythm. And among the most ancient, successful, and specialized hunters in this gloom were the spiders. We find them in the amber, their forms familiar and yet unsettling. We see the 8 legs, the patient, predatory stance. We can see, with a clarity that is almost magical, the fine, delicate spinnerets at the back of their abdomens, the tiny nozzles from which a silken, liquid future would have been drawn. We recognize them instantly. They are a form of life that has survived almost unchanged to share our own world. But this ancient forest held a version of this hunter that is so profoundly strange, so calm, chill in its implications, that it forces us to reread the entire history of this ancient lineage. We look into the golden window and we see a creature that, at first, seems to be a spider. It has the fangs, it has the 8 jointed legs, it has the 2-part body, and at the end of its abdomen, it has the unmistakable functional spinnerets of a true silk-spinning spider. It is a spider. And then, extending from behind those spinnerets, is the thing that should not be there. A long, thin and segmented filament extends from its body. It is a tail like the flagellum of a whip scorpion, a long, delicate and antenna-like appendage that streams out behind it, nearly twice the length of its own body. We are looking at a chimera, a creature that is half spider, half something else entirely. A creature of myth, Chimerarachne, the chimera spider, made real. To understand the terror and the wonder of this being, we must understand what we are seeing. This is not a weapon. It is not a stinger. The long tail is covered in fine, delicate hairs, and it is clear that this was not an instrument of attack, but an instrument of perception. This was a sensory organ of profound sophistication. Imagine this creature moving through the total darkness of the leaf litter's secret tunnels. It is a true spider, perhaps with a small silken burrow, its fangs ready. But its world is not just in front of it. Its world is also, and perhaps more importantly, behind it. This long, delicate and articulate tail, a perfect flexible antenna, would have been its rear guard. It would have felt the slightest change in the air current, the faintest vibration from a predator, perhaps a hell ant or a centipede, approaching from behind. It was a 360-degree hunter, a creature that could feel its way forward and backward through the complex, tactile and dangerous darkness. This creature is not just a curiosity, it is a living, breathing page from the lost book of evolution. We know that spiders evolved from an ancient group of arachnids, the Urarinaida, which did have tails but did not have spinnerets. For decades, we had found fossils of one or the other. We had found the tailed ancestors, and we had found the true silk-spinning spiders. This creature is both. It is the missing link, the transitional form made manifest. It is a creature that had held onto its ancient, primitive, reptilian past, the tail, while simultaneously evolving the revolutionary, futuristic tool that would define its descendants, the silk. It is a mosaic, a living paradox, a creature existing in 2 different evolutionary ages at the same single instant. It is, perhaps, the most perfect Sakin Urperti creature the amber holds. A being that whispers to us of a time when the categories of life were not yet fixed, a time when a spider could still remember, in its very bones and flesh, the tale of its ancient scorpion-like ancestor. It was a creature of 2 worlds, a ghost from the very dawn of the arachnid line. But it was not the only strange weaver in this forest. Other spiders had traded this sensory tale for a different, more brutal kind of adaptation. They had traded silk and sensation for a suit of impenetrable, nightmarish armor. The tailed spider is a creature of profound sensory grace, a being that evolved a delicate silken filament to feel its way through a world of shadows. It was a strategy of awareness, of perception. But the Cretaceous forest floor was a place of brutal, relentless, and specialized warfare. And in this world, not all spiders chose the path of sensation. Some, it seems, chose the path of the fortress. When we imagine a spider today, we imagine a creature of profound, almost liquid vulnerability. We think of a soft, unarmored body, a being whose only defense is its venom, its speed, or its silk. It is a creature of the shadows, a hunter that relies on stealth because it is itself so fragile. The Cretaceous forest, in its dark and ancient imagination, held a different, more brutal kind of weaver. We look into the golden light and we find spiders that are not soft. We find creatures that have encased themselves as if in a medieval suit of plate, in a hard, chitinous, and often terrifying armor. These are not the familiar, vulnerable forms of our own age. These are living tanks, miniature, eight-legged castles built to move and to kill. Their abdomens, normally the softest part of the spider, are covered in hard, sclerotized plates like the armor of a beetle. These plates are not smooth. They are often studded with sharp, wicked-looking spines, with ridges, with horns, and with knobs. Their carapaces are thickened and rugged. They were creatures designed not just to hunt, but to withstand an attack. We must ask the question, the same question that echoes through this entire lost world. Why? Why would a spider need a suit of armor? The answer is all around it. The answer is in the very air and in the leaf litter that it shared. It lived in a world of hell ants with their vertical, impaling scythes. It lived in a world of giant predatory centipedes, themselves armored and venomous. It lived in a world where its neighbors, its prey, and its predators were all locked in a constant 100-million-year arms race. To be soft in this world was to be a victim. These spiders, creatures like Pilospectra or the other ancient armored orb weavers, are a testament to that dark and brutal reality. Their very bodies are a fossil of the danger they lived in. Their armor is a story, written in chitin, that tells us with perfect clarity that the forest floor was not a quiet, peaceful place. It was a battlefield. It is a different, and perhaps more desperate kind of evolution. The tailed spider evolved a way to feel the danger coming from behind. The armored spider, perhaps, evolved a way to survive it when it arrived. It was a being that could hunker down, its spiny armored abdomen a shield, its legs tucked in, waiting for the danger to pass, or perhaps for its own armored prey to wander too close. This, then, was the Cretaceous laboratory. It was a place of endless, specialized warfare. It produced fortresses. It produced living, sensory arrays. And in its darkest, most patient corners, it produced the pure, specialized, and almost impossibly strange assassin. It produced a spider that traded both armor and sensory tails for a weapon so bizarre it would seem to be a biological impossibility: a neck. The Cretaceous laboratory did not just produce fortresses and sensory arrays, it produced assassins. And in the dark, damp and tangled world of the leaf litter, it perfected a form of spider so bizarre, so alien in its proportions, that it seems to defy the very laws of biological engineering. This is a creature that traded armor for an even more radical specialization. It is a spider that evolved a neck. We look into the golden light, and a creature of impossible, fragile, and grotesque beauty looks back. We see, at first, a spider's abdomen and 8 long, stilt-like legs. But the head, the part that should be attached closely to the body, is not. It is held aloft at the end of a long, thin, and rigid stalk, a neck that elevates its gaze far from the ground it walks on. And from this elevated, periscope-like head, another, even stranger, adaptation unfurls. Its jaws, the chelicerae, are not the short, powerful fangs of a normal spider. They too have been elongated, drawn out into 2 impossibly long, thin, and gracefully curving arms held far out in front of the creature. And at the very tip of these arms, like the precise, tiny, and deadly points of a surgeon's tool, are the fangs. This is the assassin spider, a member of the ancient Archaeae family. Its anatomy is a masterpiece of evolutionary exaggeration. The neck, of course, is not a true neck. It is a profound, grotesque modification of its cephalothorax, the part of its body that holds its head and legs, elongated to serve a single, terrible purpose. This creature's entire body is a weapon, a tool designed for a very specific kind of murder. It was not a creature of speed. It was a slow, deliberate, and patient stalker. Its long, stilted legs allowed it to move with a high, quiet grace through the tangled, three-dimensional world of the forest floor, stepping over the debris and the hidden webs of other creatures. For that is its secret. The assassin spider, with its long-range fangs and its elevated head, was a specialized killer of other spiders. Imagine the scene. The assassin, its body held high, moves through the darkness. It senses the delicate, silken threads of another spider's web. It does not blunder in. It does not attack. It stands at a distance, a safe, calculated distance. It is a creature that, by its very design, has mastered the art of reach. It can stand in perfect safety, its own body far from the fangs of its prey, and simply extend its long jaw-like arms into the other spider's home. Perhaps it plucks the web, a gentle, insidious vibration, mimicking a trapped and struggling fly. And when the owner of the web, perhaps one of the armored weavers, rushes out to claim its meal, it finds not food, but death from above. The assassin strikes, the long, fanged arms snap shut, impaling the victim. It is then held, at arm's length, far from the assassin's own vulnerable body, while the venom, a specialized cocktail, does its work. It is predation as a form of cold, calculated, and long-range execution. This creature, with its impossible, fragile, and deadly design, is another piece of the Cretaceous puzzle. It confirms that this was a world of profound, intricate, and specialized violence. It was a forest where every creature, no matter how small, was a unique solution to the problem of survival. The amber, in its perfect clarity, shows us these spectacular, strange predators. But it also reveals that the forest floor was filled with an even greater diversity of life, forms so small and so bizarre they defy our very categories. Microscopic experiments in armor and form that were just as strange and just as alien as the assassins who may have hunted them. The assassins and their armored prey were the visible macroscopic soldiers in this ancient war. But the Cretaceous forest, like our own, had an entirely different and far stranger dimension of life. We must now adjust our gaze, moving past the world of the merely small and into the world of the microscopic. The amber, in its perfect, clear, and unblinking lens, did not just capture the predators and the prey. It captured the dust of their world. And in that dust lived creatures that are, in their own way, more alien than any hell ant. We are now in a realm that existed on the damp, glistening surface of a single leaf, or in the shallow, temporary universe of a water droplet. Here, the rules of physics are different. Gravity is a weak suggestion, but the surface tension of water is an impassable wall. The air itself is a thick, viscous sea. And in this realm, an entirely different kind of evolution was at play. In this microscopic landscape, we find a creature so strange that it too became a taxonomic orphan. It is a being that, for a time, defied all our attempts to place it on the tree of life. It is known to science as Sialomorpha, a name that hints at its strangeness. But it is better known by its nickname, a name given by the scientists who found it, a name that perfectly captures its baffling and humble form, the Molder pig. It is a creature of almost comical and deeply unnerving design. It is a microscopic tank, a tiny, eight-legged, barrel-shaped being, moving with a slow, deliberate and shuffling gait. Its body is encased in a tough, segmented and seemingly armored cuticle, giving it the appearance of a microscopic, multi-legged armadillo. It is a being built for defense, a tiny living fortress. It was found not in the leaf litter, but in the amber itself, suggesting it lived on the bark of the great trees, perhaps navigating the intricate, damp forests of moss and fungi that grew there. Its life was a slow, grazing journey. It was not a hunter. It was, as its nickname suggests, a grazer of mold, a connoisseur of the fungal spores and bacteria that formed a living, breathing skin on the surface of the tree's armor. But what is it? It has 8 legs, which might suggest a spider or a mite. But its body, its mouth parts, its entire construction is wrong. It is not an arachnid. It is not an insect. It is not a crustacean. It is, like the thing with no name, an evolutionary question mark. It is another lonely branch of life, a design so specialized for its microscopic, fungal world that it looks like nothing else on Earth. It is a forgotten phylum, a different solution to the problem of being small. The molder pig, in its humble, armored and shuffling existence, is a profound reminder. It tells us that the strangeness of this Cretaceous world was not just a feature of its giants or its visible hunters. The weirdness, the experimental and bizarre nature of this forest went all the way down. It tells us that for every hell ant we find, there were a million microscopic alien forms that we will never see, that were not lucky enough to be captured. It reminds us that the amber is a library that is infinitely deep. It is a window into an ecosystem so rich and so alien that even its smallest, most unassuming grazers look like creatures from a different planet. This microscopic armored pig, shuffling through its fungal forest, was a quiet and successful part of this world. It had its armor, but in the same damp, dark and fungal-rich world, other small, slow-moving creatures were also evolving, and one of them, a being we know well, had developed an equally strange and seemingly useless adaptation to its own shell. That microscopic, armored pig, shuffling through its fungal world, was a creature of the hidden damp surfaces. It was a life lived in the thin, wet film that covered the bark of the amber giants. And in that same slow and glistening world, another, more familiar lineage was making its way. It was a creature that we know, a form that is, for us, the very symbol of slowness, of vulnerability, and of the damp, quiet places of the earth. We look into the golden light and we see a snail. This is not a creature that requires us to invent new categories of life. We recognize it instantly. We see the delicate coiled shell, a perfect logarithmic spiral. We see the soft, muscular and glistening body, the foot that was, in life, a river of slime, a slow hydraulic engine for moving over the world. The amber, in its impossible gentle clarity, has even preserved the 2 delicate and curious eye stalks, the periscopes of this tiny, creeping life, held aloft, perhaps, in a moment of sensory exploration. This is a profound sight, for a snail is the softest of bodies. It is a creature without armor, save for the hard mineral house it carries on its back. It is a being that, upon death, dissolves almost instantly, its soft tissues a feast for the bacteria and fungi it shared its world with. But the amber, as it always does, has saved it. It has held its soft, vulnerable flesh, its delicate, sensitive antennae, and its entire fragile being. But this creature, this ghost from the Cretaceous, holds a secret that our modern garden snails have mostly forgotten. The shell, the part that we expect to be smooth, polished and hard, is not. Erupting from the surface of this creature's coiled shell is a fine, delicate and unmistakable fuzz. It is a covering of hairs. They are not true hairs, of course. They are not the filaments of a mammal. They are bristles, an extension of the periostracum, the organic, skin-like layer that is the true living outer surface of a shell. They are ephemeral, a part of the snail that, even in our own time, often wears away as the creature ages, and which rots away to nothing in the instant after death. And yet, the amber has held them, each one a perfect tapering and translucent spike, giving the entire shell a hairy or bristly appearance. And so, the quiet, meditative question returns. Why? In a world defined by a ruthless, metabolic arms race, why would a creature, and especially a creature as slow and as vulnerable as a snail, expend its precious energy on such a seemingly useless cosmetic adaptation? The amber gives us no direct answer, but it gives us the creature, and it gives us the context. And in that, we can search for the whispers of a reason. Perhaps it was a defense. To a small lizard-like predator or a toothed opposite bird, a smooth, slick shell is an easy thing to swallow. But a shell covered in a dense, stiff and bristly fur would be a different experience. It would be a mouthful of sharp, irritating needles, a difficult and perhaps painful meal. It might have been just enough of a deterrent, just enough of an annoyance, to make the predator drop it and seek an easier, smoother victim. Or perhaps the purpose was camouflage. This snail lived in a world of moss, of fungus, of damp, rotting leaf litter. A smooth, shining shell, even a dark one, might catch the faint green filtered light, a tiny beacon for a hunter's eye. But a shell covered in a net of bristles would be a living piece of Velcro. It would trap particles of dirt. It would snag fragments of spores, of fungal filaments, of leaf debris. The snail, in its slow, creeping journey, would become invisible. It would become just another tiny, mossy, uninteresting lump on the forest floor, a moving hillock of debris hidden in plain sight. Or perhaps, and this is a stranger, more beautiful thought, the purpose was not defense, but motion. This was a world that was not just flat, but vertical. It was a world of giant, bark-armored trees, of vast, dripping fern fronds. For a creature whose life depended on a single, muscular, slimy foot, the force of gravity and the slickness of a rain-drenched surface were the greatest enemies. What if these bristles were not armor, but anchors? What if they were a kind of passive climbing gear, a way to gain a tenuous, secondary grip on the vertical, wet and treacherous landscape it called home? The snail, held in its golden tomb, its hairy shell a silent, bristling question mark, reminds us that survival is not just about armor or fangs or speed. It is about the small, strange, and ingenious solutions. It is about the tiny, hairy anchor that holds you to the world. The amber shows us this quiet, strange, victorious life, captured in a state of perfect stillness. But in its most profound and most poignant moments, the amber does not just show us a life. It shows us the very creation of life, an act of beginning, frozen in the same terrible instant as its end. We are prepared now for the stillness. We have learned to look into this golden light and see the static, frozen poses of the dead, the last, desperate archive of a creature's final moment. But the amber, in its most profound and heartbreaking acts of preservation, denies us this simple, clean narrative. It does not just show us the end, it shows us the moment before the end, and in that it shows us the opposite of death. It shows us a beginning. We look again at a piece of amber that is almost impossibly clear, and inside we see a tiny land snail, its shell a delicate translucent spiral. It is not held in a pose of violence or of terror. It is held in the single most profound and most vulnerable act of its existence. It is a mother, and she is giving birth. Emerging from the aperture of her shell, from the soft, fleshy portal of her body, are the impossible, microscopic, and perfectly formed shells of her young. They are not eggs. This was a viviparous snail, a creature that, in this ancient forest, had evolved to give birth to live, fully formed young, bypassing the vulnerable, static stage of an egg. We can see them. One is almost free. its own perfect, glassy, microscopic shell having just met the world for the first time. Another is just behind it, a tiny, spiral ghost, still held within the mother's body, a moment away from its own beginning. This is the scene, the tableau, that the Cretaceous forest set. And in this exact, sacred and vulnerable instant, the Golden River came. We must imagine the moment with a quiet, terrible clarity. The resin, the slow, warm and pungent tide, flowed over the mother. It was not an instantaneous death. It was a slow, suffocating and adhesive embrace. We are forced to imagine the scene, a scene of almost unbearable poignancy. The mother, her body already beginning to struggle against the chemical trap, her ancient biological imperative still driving her, still forcing her to push, to finish the sacred, unthinking act of creation. The resin, that perfect preserver, was a perfect, suffocating blanket. It flowed over the mother's body, sealing her breath, and it flowed over the newborn, the tiny creature that had left its mother's shell only to enter an identical golden tomb. Its first wet and fragile moment of life was its last. It was born into its coffin. This single piece transforms the entire gallery. It is the ultimate paradox of the amber. It is a tomb that is also a nursery. It is a record of death that is, in its very essence, a story about the creation of life. It proves that this ancient alien forest, this world of hell ants and tailed spiders and toothed birds, was not just a brutal, violent stage. It was also a place of quiet, profound, and familiar tenderness. It was a world governed by the same gentle and relentless imperatives that govern our own. The drive to continue, the profound, unthinking, and beautiful force of generation. This mother snail is a monument to an effort that was, in that instant, rendered futile, but by being captured has been made eternal. It is a tragedy and a victory, held in the same perfect, golden balance. This snail, in its act of birth, represents the engine of the forest, the constant renewal, the spinning of the great wheel of life. But this Cretaceous world was not just a place of these new, experimental and fast-evolving forms. It was also a place of profound, ancient, and almost eternal stability. It was a refuge for creatures that were, even then, almost impossibly old. It was home to beings that had survived extinctions the dinosaurs had not yet even faced, quiet, slow, and truly ancient travelers. This ancient forest, this stage for birth and for new experimental forms, was also a museum. It was a refuge. It was a quiet, damp and shaded place that held, in its deepest shadows, creatures that were not new at all. It held beings that were, even in this Cretaceous world, impossibly ancient. They were living fossils, travelers from a forgotten eon who had been walking the earth long before the first dinosaur ever drew breath. We look into the golden light and we find one of these travelers. It is a creature of pure, soft-bodied and profound antiquity. At a glance, it resembles a caterpillar, a soft, segmented worm. But it is not an insect. It is something else entirely, a member of a phylum, Onychophora, that is a living whisper from the deep, deep past. We are looking at a velvet worm. Its preservation is another miracle of the amber, another soft-bodied ghost that should have been lost to time. It is a creature without armor, without a shell. Its entire body is a soft, muscular and hydrostatic tube, covered in a skin that is not skin, but a thin, velvety cuticle. The amber, in its perfect, gentle fidelity, shows us this texture. It shows us the countless, microscopic and overlapping papillae that gave this creature its name, a surface so fine that, in life, it would have repelled water, a coat of living velvet. And from this soft, rippling body, we see its legs. They are not the jointed, chitinous and mechanical limbs of an insect or a spider. They are a different and far older idea. They are lobopods, fleshy, unjointed, cone-shaped extensions of the body, moving not with the click of a joint, but with the slow, hydraulic and liquid pulse of its blood. It is a design that whispers of the Cambrian, of a time when the very idea of a leg was still being sketched by evolution. This soft, quiet and ancient creature was a hunter. It moved with a slow, rippling and almost silent grace through the darkest, dampest parts of the forest floor, a place where the light never reached. Its head, crowned with two soft and inquisitive antennae, would have sensed the world through touch and through chemical trails. And its method of hunting is its final, bizarre and beautiful secret. It is a form of predation that is unique in all the animal kingdom. When this soft, slow and vulnerable creature found its prey, perhaps a small armored insect, it did not bite, it did not grasp, it did not sting. From two specialized glands, two papillae on its head, it projected its weapon. It shot with a pulse of muscular contraction, two fine and adhesive streams of a liquid, proteinaceous slime. It was a liquid, entangling snare. This slime, upon contact with the air, would have solidified almost instantly. A biological superglue that tangled the prey's legs, sealed its mouth and trapped it in a net of its own sticky biological invention. The velvet worm would then, in its own slow and unhurried time, approach the ensnared victim. This creature is a profound and quiet statement. It is a design so perfect, so successful, that it had already survived hundreds of millions of years. It had survived the Great Dying, the extinction that ended the Paleozoic, an apocalypse that made the end of the dinosaurs look small. It was a ghost of a deeper time, walking, unchanged, through a world that was, to it, new and fast and chaotic. It was a living, breathing and hunting piece of the ancient past. It was a lonely traveller, a representative of a lineage that had perfected the art of solitary survival. But it was not the only ancient solitary phantom in this dark and hidden world. Other, smaller and equally strange hunters haunted this same leaf litter, creatures that had also perfected their own unique and ancient tools for predation. The velvet worm, with its soft, ancient body and its liquid snare, was a ghost of a deeper, stranger time. But this dark, hidden metropolis was not home to just one kind of ancient phantom. In the same microscopic crevices, another very different hunter was plying its own equally ancient trade. This one was not soft. It was a creature of armor, of chitin and of sharp mechanical precision. We look into the amber and we see a creature of familiar yet profoundly unsettling design. It is a being of miniature, concentrated terror. We see a tiny, flattened, teardrop-shaped body. We see 8 quick, scuttling legs, and at its front we see 2 disproportionately enormous and perfectly formed pincers, held aloft, open and ready. It looks, for all the world, like a scorpion. But as our eye follows its body back, the thing that should be there, the defining feature of a scorpion, is missing. There is no long, segmented, arching tail. There is no venomous stinger held in threat. This is a creature that is only half a nightmare. It is a being defined by what it lacks. This is the pseudo-scorpion, the false scorpion. It was a lion in its own microscopic jungle. It was a dominant, voracious, and terrifyingly effective predator in the world of the very small. It did not hunt dinosaurs. It hunted the molder pigs, the springtails, the mites, and the tiny larvae that teemed in the damp soil. It would move with a slow, deliberate, and almost crab-like gait, its giant claws, its pedipalps held wide. It sensed the world not with eyes, but through fine, sensory hairs on those claws, and when its prey, perhaps a creature a fraction of its own size, brushed against them, the claws would snap shut with a speed that was almost instantaneous. But the claws were not just for crushing. This phantom held a secret that was even more sophisticated. This creature had venom. It did not inject it with a tail, but with its hands. The amber, in its perfect preservation, shows us the tiny, almost invisible structures at the tips of those pincers. It was a hunter that could both grasp and poison its prey in a single, efficient and terrible motion. Yet for all its predatory power, this creature was a prisoner of its own smallness. Its world, the patch of leaf litter it was born in, was an island. It was too small and too slow to cross the vast, dry and dangerous deserts of sun-baked rock or open ground that separated one patch of forest floor from another. It was a king of a tiny, isolated kingdom, and it solved this problem of isolation with an act of staggering, profound and beautiful audacity. When a larger, more mobile creature, perhaps a giant beetle or a fly, or even one of the small feathered dinosaurs, landed nearby, the pseudo-scorpion would see its chance. It would scuttle forward, not in aggression, but in hope. It would grasp the leg of this giant, this temporary, unknowing god, with one of its great claws. It would not sting. It would not attack. It would simply hold on. This was foracy. It was hitching a ride. The pseudo-scorpion would use the power of a creature 1,000 times its size to fly. It would be lifted from its small, known world and carried, clinging through the strange, terrifying and sunlit air, to be deposited, perhaps, in an entirely new forest, a new island of dampness, a new kingdom to conquer. It was a microscopic, armored aeronaut, a silent, eight-legged traveler. This act of hitching is a testament to the complex and often bizarre relationships that this Cretaceous forest fostered. It was a one-sided relationship, a form of brilliant, opportunistic theft. The pseudo-scorpion took, but it gave nothing back. But in this same forest, in the newly evolved, coloured and scented world of the first flowers, another, even more profound relationship was being born. It was not a relationship of theft, but of partnership. It was a delicate, revolutionary and mutual dance, a co-evolution that would, in time, remake the entire planet. The pseudo-scorpion's journey was a tale of theft, a brilliant, one-sided and opportunistic use of another's power. But in this same Cretaceous world, in the dappled, green-filtered light, a different and far more profound story was beginning. A new kind of relationship was being forged. It was not a story of predation or of parasitism. It was a story of co-creation, a quiet, revolutionary and mutual dance. For millions of years, the forest had been a world of green and brown, a world dominated by the wind. The great conifers, the amber giants themselves, were creatures of this wind. They reproduced by releasing clouds of pollen, unimaginable golden storms of genetic dust hurled into the atmosphere in a gamble of pure brute force statistics, hoping that 1 in a billion might find its mark. It was an impersonal, inefficient and geological process. But in the undergrowth, the new, strange and waxy forms of the first flowers had begun a different gamble. They were an evolutionary whisper, a new idea. They could not rely on the wind. They were too small, too low to the ground. They needed an ambassador. They needed a messenger. And to attract one, they invented a new language, the language of scent, of color, and of reward. They evolved a sugary, high-energy liquid, nectar, a payment for services. They evolved subtle, pale colors, a visual flag in the green gloom. They evolved chemical perfumes, a trail of scent in the damp air. They were the first advertisements, the first invitations. And the insects, the true masters of this world, were the first to answer. We look into the amber, and we find them. We find a tiny, unassuming beetle, or perhaps a short-tongued, primitive fly. It is a creature we might otherwise overlook. But we lean closer, and we see that its body, its armored back and hairy legs, is dusted. It It is covered in the faint, golden, geometric and unmistakable shapes of pollen grains. The amber has captured the messenger, red-handed, in the very act of its revolutionary work. We can imagine the scene. The beetle, perhaps, was not interested in the flower's future. It was interested in the present. It was drawn by the rich, promising scent. It pushed its way into the strange, waxy petals to feed on the nectar, or perhaps to eat the protein-rich pollen itself. And as it did, as it burrowed and fed, its rough, textured body became a living brush. It was coated, accidentally, with the flower's genetic code. Then, its meal finished, it would crawl out and move on. It would fly, its wings a low, ancient drone to the next, pale and scented invitation. And as it pushed its way into this new flower, the golden dust from the last would be brushed off. A connection would be made. This was the dance. The beetle received a meal. The flower received a future. It was a transaction of perfect, mutual benefit. The insect, in its simple, unthinking hunger, had become an unwitting agent of evolution. It was a key, and it had just unlocked a door that would lead to an explosion of new life. This quiet, accidental partnership would, in time, break the long, green, monotonous reign of the conifers. This dance, this precision pollination, allowed for specialization, for diversity, for the wild, spectacular, and colorful radiation of the flowering plants, the angiosperms, that would one day feed the entire world. The amber holds the very first steps of this dance. It holds the tiny, mundane, and profoundly important insect, its body covered in the dust of a future it could not imagine, a future of roses and orchids and the meadows of our own time. This new partnership, this world of color and scent, created a new kind of sensory landscape. But this new visual world also created a new kind of danger. If a flower could be seen, so too could the creature visiting it. And in this new world of vision, a new art form was being perfected, the art of not being seen at all. This new visual world, the world of bright flowers and sharp-eyed hunters, was a dangerous stage. Vision had been weaponized. To be seen in this Cretaceous forest was to be vulnerable. To be colorful or to move too quickly was to paint a target on one's own back. And so, in this high-stakes game of light and shadow, an entirely new and silent art form was being perfected. It was not the art of the pounce or the strike. It was the art of non-existence. It was the art of the mimic. We look into the amber, and at first it seems to hold nothing. We see a piece that is almost empty, a flawed jewel containing what appears to be a flaw, a fractured, broken piece of a plant, a single, uninteresting twig. But this stillness is an illusion. We look closer, and the illusion shatters. This twig has 6 impossibly long and perfectly jointed legs, held in a pose of absolute, prayer-like stillness. This is not a piece of wood. It is an insect, a phasmid, a stick insect, a creature that has mastered the art of disappearing in plain sight. This is a profound evolutionary gamble. This creature has traded speed. It has traded armor. It has traded, it seems, almost every defense for a single philosophical one, the defense of being mistaken for nothing at all. Its entire body, its elongated thorax, its slender stick-like legs, its very color, is a perfect living echo of the dead debris on the forest floor. It would have moved, not with a scuttle, but with a slow, swaying and patient motion, imitating a twig caught in a breeze that did not exist. It is a living, breathing and walking piece of the background, a creature whose entire survival depended on not being seen by the quick, lizard-like eyes of Oculudentavis or the sharp, avian gaze of the opposite birds. The forest, however, had more than one kind of background, and so, there was more than one kind of disguise. In other pieces, we find creatures that chose not to be the twig, but the leaf. We see a form, flattened and wide, its wings not for flight, but for illusion, impressed with the delicate branching veins of a living leaf. Its legs are flattened lobes, sections of a stem, a puzzle piece that, when held still, would have vanished completely, merging with the green, fern-like carpet of the forest floor. But perhaps the most profound and most unsettling mimicry was not practiced by a creature that looked like the forest, but by one that wore the forest. We find them in the amber, these soft-bodied, vulnerable grubs, the larvae, perhaps, of an ancient lacewing. They seem at first to be helpless, an easy meal. But their backs are covered in a dense, tangled and chaotic mat of bristles, of spines, of hooks, and impaled on these hooks is a mass of garbage. It is a chaotic, messy and perfect shield. It is a mobile fortress of filth. We look closer and we see the contents of this disguise. We see particles of dirt. We see fern spores. We see fragments of moss. We see filaments of fungi. And sometimes, in an act of chilling, macabre genius, we see the hollowed-out, vampirized husks of their own prey, the tiny, empty armors of the mites they have just consumed. This is not just camouflage. This is a predator that has disguised itself as a random, uninteresting and inanimate pile of debris. It is a phantom, a living, walking junk pile, a tiny, predatory ghost carrying the graveyard of its victims on its back. It is a creature that moves through the world, unseen, its prey not even recognizing it as alive, until the moment the junk pile reveals its fangs. This, then, was the art of deception, an art born of vision and of danger. These creatures hid themselves by becoming the forest, by wearing its debris, its dirt, and the filaments of its fungal carpets. They became part of the background, part of the great, slow and unceasing engine of decay and renewal that defines any forest. But the amber did not just capture the creatures that hid in this world of decay. It captured the world of decay itself. It captured the silent, unseen and powerful architects of that decay. The fungi. The disguise of the mimic, the walking pile of debris, was a testament to the world it lived in. It wore the carpet of the forest, a shield of dirt, of spores, and of fungal filaments. And now, the amber, in its infinite, microscopic and patient gaze, asks us to look past the mimic and to see the carpet itself. We have seen the actors, the hunters and the hunted, the mimics and the mimicked. But now we must see the stage. We must see the silent, invisible and vastly powerful engine that drove the entire ecosystem. We look into the golden light and we find a world that is not animal, not plant, but something other. We find the third kingdom. We find the fungi. This is, perhaps, the most profound and impossible preservation of all. We find them not as impressions, but as they were. We see the delicate, ghostly and translucent threads, the hyphae, the true body of the fungus, a network finer than any spider's silk, snaking its way through a trapped piece of rotting wood. We see a microscopic world of spores, millions of them, caught in a golden cloud, each one a tiny, geometric and dormant promise of a new network. And in the rarest, most miraculous of pieces, we see the thing that should never, ever have been preserved. We see a mushroom. We must pause to understand this. A mushroom in our own world is a ghost. It is an ephemeral thought, a fruiting body pushed up by the great, unseen underground network, the mycelium. It is an entity of 90% water, a structure so fragile that it seems made of damp air. It appears overnight, and in a day it melts, it liquefies, it rots. It returns to the earth as a black, wet stain. It is the most fleeting of all biological structures. And yet the amber, in its warm, suffocating and antiseptic embrace, has captured it. It has found this watery ghost, and in a single golden instant, it has embalmed it. It has drawn out the water and sealed the architecture before a single spore could be released, before a single cell could begin to decay. We can see it, a perfect gilled mushroom, Paleoagaricites, held in a state of impossible eternal prime. We can see its cap, its stem, and the delicate, paper-thin gills that are its reproductive engine. This is the great, silent, and alchemical power of the forest. These are the recyclers. These are the beings that held the boundary between life and death. Without them, this entire Cretaceous forest would have choked on its own existence in a matter of centuries. It would have become a sterile museum of the dead, the nutrients of the world locked forever in the armor of the insects, the wood of the giant trees, and the bones of the dinosaurs. The fungi were the ones who unlocked it all. They were the masters of decay, the silent chemical engineers that dismantled the dead, broke them down to their fundamental molecular components, and returned them to the soil to be used again to build the next fern, the next tree, the next insect. The entire vibrant and violent drama of the forest, the hunting and the hiding, was only possible because this silent, unseen kingdom was patiently, tirelessly, and efficiently cleaning the stage. The amber has given us a glimpse of this vast, hidden, and powerful network, this subterranean consciousness. It has preserved the most ephemeral, the most delicate, and the most unlikely of all life forms. It has saved the soft skin of the velvet worm, the fragile web of the froglet, and the watery, impossible architecture of the mushroom. It has proven that its power of preservation is almost absolute, capable of holding the very cells of these lost beings in a perfect golden stasis. This realization, this proof of perfect cellular preservation, brings us, inevitably, to the final and most profound question. If the vessel is this perfect, what of its contents? If the physical form is held, what of the code that built it? Does this golden library, this tomb of flesh and feather and fungus, also hold the very instructions for life? In these silent golden rooms, does the ghost of DNA itself still wait? The amber has proven to be the most perfect biological archive known to science. It has held the feather, the soft eye, and the liquid architecture of the mushroom, preserving structures that defy the laws of decomposition. This perfection leads us, inevitably, to the question that haunts every piece of clear, golden light. The question of the library. If the body is held, what of the book of life itself, the delicate, double helix script known as DNA? This is the central query that has moved from the realm of science fiction into the cold, hard scrutiny of scientific inquiry. The fantasy is simple, intoxicating, and profoundly appealing: to find the perfect, whole, and readable string of genetic code preserved within the golden tomb, and to bring the hell ant, the tailed spider, or the tiny feathered ghost back to life. But the reality of DNA is far more fragile than the science fiction suggests. DNA is not a hard, mineralized substance. It is an organic molecule, a complex, vulnerable chain. And like all organic molecules, it is subject to the slow, relentless, and unceasing law of decay. It has a half-life. Scientists, through patient study, have estimated that the half-life of DNA is approximately 521 years. The amber, in its perfect defense, certainly slows this process, removing moisture and oxygen. But it cannot stop time. 100 million years is a vast, crushing epoch. It is a time span that contains nearly 200,000 half-lives. The entire original genetic library has been shattered into fragments so impossibly small that the task of reconstructing the script is not just difficult. It borders on the mathematically impossible. The book has not just been water damaged, it has been atomized. Yet the search continues. Scientists have found and successfully sequenced fragments of ancient DNA from amber inclusions. These fragments are short, tantalizing whispers, a few hundred base pairs long, not enough to build a creature, but enough to prove that the code, in its shattered form, is still there. The ambition is now shifting towards simpler, hardier molecules like proteins, which might tell us the color of the feathered ghost, or the composition of the hell ant's venom. The amber, then, is not a simple path to a fantasy of resurrection. It is a more complex, more subtle, and perhaps more beautiful proposition. It is a profound meditation on loss. It forces us to look past the fantasy and to confront the creatures themselves. And when we do, we are forced to ask a final philosophical question about the nature of the life we find there. Are these creatures truly strange, or is our perception, our modern bias, the thing that is truly alien? The Golden Gallery is filled with chimeras and paradoxes, spiders with tails, ants with scythes, the lizard that disguised itself as a bird. We call these creatures strange. We see them as the bizarre, the experimental, the evolutionary dead ends that confirm the triumphant march of the forms we know today. But this perspective, this self-congratulatory sense of evolutionary superiority, is itself a profound illusion. The amber shows us that the history of life is not a straight line, but a vast, sprawling, and chaotic tree. The creatures we see in the Cretaceous amber, the hell ants, the opposite birds, the armored weavers, were not mistakes. They were, in their own time, magnificent masterpieces of specialized engineering, perfectly adapted to a world that was thicker, hotter, and more dangerous than our own. The truth is that our own world is merely the result of a cruel, capricious, and single-point tragedy. The forms we see today, the common garden ant, the sleek modern bird, the soft-bodied spider, are not the best designs. They are simply the survivors. They are the tiny chance lineages that managed to endure the fire, the ash, and the climatic collapse that ended the Cretaceous. The hell ant, with its impaling jaws, was dominant for millions of years. Its strangeness, then, is only a measure of our own immense distance from that lost world. The amber, therefore, is not a celebration of what survived. It is a profound meditation on what was lost. But even this window is not perfect. The beautiful, dazzling window of the amber is a treasure, but it is a treasure with a narrow frame. We must consider the bias of size. The perfect, clear drops of resin were only capable of trapping the very small. The entire drama we have witnessed is a drama of millimeters. The amber is silent on the life of the giants. The vast, resonant, booming calls of the titans, the ground-shaking thud of their movement, all of this is absent. The amber is a library of the small, a story told by the prey, not the predator. We must consider the bias of location. The resin only traps creatures that live on or near the bark of the trees that produce it. The creatures of the deep swamps, the underground burrowers, the life of the deep water rivers, all these millions of species are completely excluded. The amber, therefore, is a testament to the profound incompleteness of the fossil record. It shows us that for every spectacular piece of preserved life, there are 10,000 others that we will never know. It is a scientific treasure whose value is beyond measure. But the origin of this treasure, the place where the earth has offered us this most profound of gifts, is a place marked by modern conflict and suffering. As we hold this golden light in our hands, we are forced to acknowledge the quiet, dark, and uncomfortable shadow that stretches across its surface. The modern human cost of this ancient jewel. The Burmese amber, the source of almost every incredible discovery we have discussed, comes from a specific, geographically confined region in the Hukong Valley of northern Myanmar. This region is a place marked by conflict, by human suffering, and by a fragile, often brutal political reality. The mining operations are, at times, linked to regional armed groups, fueling a complex, long-running civil conflict. The revenues generated by these sales often support factions engaged in ongoing violence. This creates a profound ethical dilemma for the world of science. To refuse to study this amber is to willfully blind ourselves to an unrecoverable piece of life's history. Yet, to study it is, in a very real and unsettling way, to participate in the mechanism that fuels the conflict. Every purchase, every headline, every spectacular finding increases the demand. The amber, then, is not just a scientific window, it is a profound, golden and silent test of our modern conscience. It forces us to acknowledge that the pursuit of knowledge is never a sterile, isolated act. It is always connected to the messiness of the human world. The light that shines through the preserved wing of a 100-million-year-old insect is a cold, beautiful and deeply unsettling light, a truth that is both ancient and violently modern. The long, slow descent is over. We have travelled through 100 million years of geologic time, from the liquid heart of the giant conifers to the dark, uncertain reality of the modern mines. And we are left, finally, with the silence of the amber itself. It is a silence that is not empty, but profoundly full. It is the silence of a clock that has stopped, a single infinitesimal moment of time held in a perfect golden stasis. The long, chaotic and beautiful story of the Cretaceous forest is over, but its life, its stillness, and its secrets are held for us, patiently waiting in the heart of the jewel. The whispers of the amber continue, and the journey into its golden light is merely a pause in our own long, uncertain path through time.